All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to be starting our talk on World War One. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the first major world conflict that has been seen since the French and Indian War, part of the 7 Years' War, all that stuff. Okay, so let's go ahead. There are four main causes of World War One, and we're going to take a look at all four of those today. Now, and you can sum it up with the acronym MAIN, meaning militarism, the alliance system, imperialism, and nationalism. All right, so let's go ahead and begin with this. Militarism, basically, everything is for and about the military. It's a thing of pride for a lot of these countries in Europe and around the world for that matter. Basically, if you have a strong military, you are a great and powerful country because you can supply your troops with, the best equipment, the best weapons, the best leaders, all that stuff. So there would start to be large armies just in these countries, and they would be ready to move out quickly should they be needed. And this was something that was highly valued. If you have a large mobile force, that was really awesome, and that was something that you wanted if you were one of these countries. Now, the alliances. Well, what is an alliance? It is basically a deal between countries that, hey, if I'm under attack, are you going to help me? You will? Awesome. Okay, so these would be formed of keeping peace in Europe. And the ironic thing, as you see at the bottom there, it actually pushed Europe into World War One. So it's because nobody knew who was allied with who. So that causes some problems, as we will see today. All right, World War One, we have two primary alliances, the Triple Alliance of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. We then have the Triple Entente, which is France, Russia, and Great Britain. And much later in the war, like the final year of the war, the United States. And the Triple Alliance actually ends up getting an additional ally after Italy actually switches sides, and that is the Ottoman Empire. All right, so this is where we are with the alliances before the war. There we go. Imperialism. All right. Basically, when powerful countries dominate weaker countries. So this is basically the end of the race for conquering and colonizing and taking over areas of Africa. It was like the last great frontier of colonization and empire building for Europeans. So there's all this competition for all that land, the resources, all of these things. And World War One just brings it all to a head, and that's when the guns start blazing. All right. Disputes over land, who actually controls what rivers, what sides of rivers, whose railways are whose, all this stuff. And yeah, just the rivalries for whatever land that's still available, gets taken over by who. That is a big part of this as well. And also military tensions raising because you need to protect your holdings in these other places. So there are soldiers moving about all over the place. So that just adds even more tension. Okay. This map here is showing what imperialism was like in 1900. As you can see, like France, they basically had all of the Sahara Desert, that big, huge chunk of northwestern Africa. And the British, they had a huge area of eastern North Africa, like from Egypt on down to like Ethiopia. Well, around Ethiopia. Ethiopia actually was independent. Germany, it had some stuff going around, some little holdings in Africa as well as in the Pacific. Japan, they actually had Korea. The U.S., we had some stuff here and there, not a huge amount, mostly some Pacific islands. Italy, they had a little bit of stuff around Ethiopia and East Africa, not too much anywhere else. They were on the weak side, actually. All right, so there's just an idea of what we're working with. Now, nationalism, the last part of those four main causes. Nationalism is that deep, extreme devotion to your country, where it's like, we are better than everyone else just because this is where we're from. So, say Italy, for instance. Italy's the best country in the world because, Italians are the best people, things like that. That type of animosity towards other ethnicities or just nationalities in general. So, like, if you think that you're better than somebody else just because of where you're from. So, there's going to be a lot of competition, and it's going to raise tensions even higher than they already are. All right. So, competitions for markets and materials, that's getting into the imperialism stuff again. Also, just trade in general as well. Which country can make the best stuff, who can sell their stuff faster, all of that. And something that's really going to be a thorn in the side of two countries is with France and Germany. So you should remember that the Franco-Prussian War was something that happened in the later 1800s, and Germany stomped France in that war, and they took over this territory that's between the two called Alsace-Lorraine. France wants it back, and it's now in Germany's hands. So this is a big issue that has to be addressed between these two countries. So, and that's going to be a very big fighting point for them. Right? Alsace-Lorraine's that pink area in the upper right corner. Traditionally, it is a part of France. At least, it is now. But throughout history, it has belonged to, depending on the decade or the century, it's belonged to either France or Germany. Just depends on who just happened to be going through that area with an army at the time, really. All right. So, nationalism is what is going to lead to the event that starts it all. In the Balkans, Southeastern Europe, this is, the place where like Serbia, Albania, Croatia, all those countries right above Greece. They are a powder keg. And what is a powder keg? It's basically a wooden barrel filled with gunpowder. You don't want to set fire next to one of those, right? That is what's going to happen, though. Okay? So, Austria-Hungary and Serbia both want control of Bosnia. It's on the border between the two, and Austria-Hungary takes it. Bosnia is not very happy about it. They're going to start stirring up some trouble with the Serbians. And this is because of something called Pan-Slavism. Basically, that all the Slavic people share a common ancestry and nationality, and they should be with each other, just the Slavic people. Russia is like the mother of all Slavic countries. It's the biggest and strongest of the Slavic nations. So they're like the mother to all these small Slavic country children, quote unquote. So they're like the protector. Now, the spark that starts it all, June 28th, 1924, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, Franz Ferdinand, and his wife Sophie are assassinated in Sarajevo, Bosnia, by the 19-year-old extremist Gavrilo Princip, who was a member of a Serbian terrorist group known as the Black Hand. Quite menacing, all right? Now, the thing about that is he just happened upon them. So this day, June 28th, 1914, Franz Ferdinand and his wife, they are in Sarajevo, basically on a goodwill tour with the Serbians, and with the Bosnians, I should say. So they are just going about doing their business, doing all the political functions and everything, and the Black Hand is preparing to assassinate them, especially him, Franz Ferdinand. And what they're planning on doing is blowing him up. So what they're going to do is, as he and his motorcade are going by, they plan to just throw bombs into the street as he's passing, and they explode once his car's going over top of it. But what happens is there's a delay in the timer for the explosion, and it actually blows up the car that is behind Ferdinand's car. And the two bodyguards that were inside that car got injured, taken to the hospital. And after some time went by, he and his wife were actually on their way to the hospital so they could check on their guys, make sure they're getting taken care of, all that type of stuff. Franz Ferdinand and his wife were actually really good people. So their driver accidentally made a wrong turn. He turned like a block too soon for the hospital, and he pulled over to the side of the street real quick, just be like, hey, I made a wrong turn. Where was that turn I'm supposed to make? And Gavrilo, he just happens to be walking along the road there, sees them pulled over on the side of the road in their car, which is a convertible, by the way. So what he does is he walks up to the car, pulls out a pistol, and lights them up, kills them both. And then, of course, he gets jumped and beaten up and everything. He later gets executed for assassinating the heir to an empire and his wife, right? So that's what does it. So then how does everybody else get involved? So Franz Joseph, who is the leader of Austria-Hungary, so, like the father of Franz Ferdinand, he basically goes to his buddy, Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany, and he's like, hey, if things go down, you got my back? And Wilhelm is basically like, he gives him what is called the blank check. So basically, we will support you no matter what. You got us for as long as you need us. So Austria-Hungary wants to destroy Serbia, and the assassination of the heir, Franz Ferdinand, is the perfect excuse to light them up, to destroy them and take them over, make Serbia no longer a thing. Now, it gets even more complicated, and there is a perfect little thing that I'm going to read to you guys real quick called If World War I Were a Bar Fight. So just bear with me as I read this. So, Germany, Austria, and Italy are standing together in the middle of a pub when Serbia bumps into Austria and spills Austria's pint. Austria demands Serbia buy it a complete new suit because there are splashes on its trouser leg. Germany expresses its support for Austria's point of view. Britain recommends that everyone calm down a bit. So then, Serbia points out that it can't afford a whole suit but offers to pay for the cleaning of Austria's trousers. Russia and Serbia look at Austria. Austria asks Serbia who it's looking at. Russia suggests that Austria should leave its little brother alone. Austria inquires as to whose army will assist Russia in compelling it to do so. Germany appeals to Britain that France has been looking at it, and that this is sufficiently out of order that Britain should not intervene. Britain replies that France can look at who it wants to, and that Britain is looking at Germany too. And what is Germany going to do about it? See how things can kind of flare up? All right, so then Germany tells Russia to stop looking at Austria, or Germany will render Russia incapable of such action. Britain and France ask Germany whether it's looking at Belgium. Turkey and Germany go off into a corner and whisper. When they come back, Turkey makes a show of not looking at anyone. Germany rolls up its sleeves, looks at France, and punches Belgium. France and Britain punch Germany. Austria punches Russia. Germany punches Britain and France with one hand and Russia with the other. Russia throws a punch at Germany but misses and nearly falls over. Japan calls over from the other side of the room that it's on Britain's side but stays there. Italy surprises everyone by punching Austria. Australia punches Turkey and gets punched back. There are no hard feelings, though, because Britain made Australia do it. France gets thrown through a plate glass window, then gets back up and carries on fighting. Russia then gets thrown through another one, gets knocked out, suffers brain damage, and wakes up with a complete personality change. Italy throws a punch at Austria and misses, but Austria falls over anyway. Italy raises both fists in the air and runs around the room chanting. America waits till Germany is about to fall over from sustained punching from Britain and France, then walks over and smashes it with a bar stool, then pretends it won the whole fight all by itself. By now, all the chairs are broken and the big mirror over the bar is shattered. Britain and France and America agree that Germany threw the first punch, so the whole thing is Germany's fault. While Germany is still unconscious, they go through its pockets, steal its wallet, and buy drinks for all their friends. All right. Now, I know that was a lot, but if you look at that all written out, it actually is a perfect storytelling of how World War I plays out. All right, now, so getting into how everything is really getting started, just to help fill in the blanks of the bar fight story. We have an ultimatum that Austria-Hungary gives Serbia, and it's a very harsh one, and they only have 2 days to reply. Now, there are 12 demands, and Serbia meets 11 out of the 12, and Austria-Hungary is not willing to negotiate at all. It's like, hey, you didn't do all 12 things? You're in for it now. We declare war. So, 5 days later, Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia. This then is going to initiate Russia mobilizing its ready, so getting its army ready. Germany, in response to Russia getting ready to fight, declares war on Russia. Then Germany declares war on France and invades Belgium, like 2 days later. And then Britain declares war on Germany in response to the invasion of Belgium. It's a lot, I understand, but this is the quickest, best breakdown I can give. Now, so we have our two sides emerging. We have the Allies, which of course is Great Britain, France, Russia, Serbia, Belgium, Japan, and Italy, because Italy actually switches sides. And then we have the Central Powers, which is Germany, Austria-Hungary, Bulgaria, and the Ottoman Empire, kind of because they're in the center of the Allies. Like they're just a column with opposing Allied power columns on either side of them. All right. And this little graph right here shows when basically the alliances began and when treaties were going on between who. So kind of tying everybody together, how they get tied together. All right, and to make it a little easier, here's the map showing where everybody is. The Allied powers are in green, Central Powers are that orangey goldish color, and purple, people that just don't care. They just want to stay out of it because everything's a mess. All right, that is where we're going to stop today. Come back tomorrow, which, yeah, you need to, and we will get into the actual fighting of World War I.